Good morning, everybody. Sorry, Shashank has just put me live. Thank you, Shashank. Wonderful. Great to see everybody this morning. We're going to talk about the same stuff that we talk about every single week. We're going to go through growth, and more growth. This is a beautiful Labor Day in the US. So anybody who's on here, you have proven that you are prepared to do what needs to be done to be successful as a startup. I want to talk, I'm going to bring in one of our founders in a little while. I'm going to bring in one of our really top founders who's is doing really incredible things. Now, Shashank has put me in here, but Shashank, I cannot see the comments as we're in. So I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to just jump in the studio myself from here, because otherwise I'm just going to be sitting there and I won't be able to see what everybody is saying. And I do want to make sure, there we go. And now I'm in. There we go. Perfect. Now I can see chat, I can see comments, I can see everything. I would love some engagement on the show today. I want to see, what do you need? What are you looking for? Where are you struggling? Are you hitting challenges with regards to your mindset? Are you hitting challenges with regards to your outreach? What are the other areas that you need? It could be the conversations that you're having with your customers. It could be any one of a number of things. I will start by kicking in with a few different topics before Arnav comes in. I want to talk about peak performance, and I want to talk about the components of peak performance and what helps you get there. I have been looking at this more and more, to the extent that we actually have had a couple of our trainings that we did last week, the video trainings, directly focused on how you build your peak performance. I want to talk about the three main areas of peak performance that are going to help you be successful and what that jumps into. And then I want to jump into what's happening with investors and how you can have a better chance of being able to raise money on investors. Okay, so let me start with peak performance and where that begins. And that peak performance is, for, as you can see behind us on the wall, all of the founders that we have, that we've invested in here in Expert Dojo, all of those people are all going through the same thing. They all want to make sure that their peak performance is the absolute best that it can possibly be. So, three components. The first one is your resilience and your mindset in general. Like, what are the things that you should do to prepare yourself for this grueling work, this grueling life that is early stage startup? And I want to jump into a bunch of stuff on that area. The second piece is communication. Actually, I'll say the second piece is clear decision making, and the third piece is communication, because it kind of follows that order, right? If you have all of the components of a strong mindset, then you're going to be in a much better position to be able to make clear decision making, right? And then if you can do that, you're going to be in a much better position to be able to communicate that clear decision making forward. So, first piece, what's the kind of stuff you should be doing? Go to bed early. Real simple. Like, it starts there. If you go to bed at like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the evening, you can wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's what I do. If you go to bed at midnight, you're not going to be able to do that. If you're staying up watching YouTube videos or watching Netflix or watching something else, then it's even going to be worse, because not only are you going to bed later, but also your mindset is in a place where your mind is so stimulated on so many things that they're going to absolutely drive you totally nuts. The second piece is drink lots of water. Third piece is make sure that you got a bunch of good eating habits, especially here in the US. There's so much bloody preservatives and things. There's so much sugar in things. All of these things are stopping you from becoming a great startup / athlete, because that's what you're training to be. If you've got to be working 14, 16 hours a day, if you're going to be doing this 6, 7 days a week, if you're going to last 2, 3, 4 years before you even have a proper breakthrough, you need to be fit. I'll even go further. I started doing meditation, yoga, to make sure that I can control my thought process. Again, huge. And look, you don't have to do all of these things, but you need to start considering some of these things. You need to take control of a body and a mind that you are currently abusing. I like going for a run once or twice a week if I can, or doing something else, even if it's tennis or something else. It doesn't really matter. What matters is you do something. You need some type of exercise, some type of break from what you're actually doing. I think of learning also as another amazing thing to do. I like to do it inside the world of entrepreneurship, but you may have other areas that you want to work inside as well. But you have to become a lifelong learner. And so if you think of all of these things, the way you're eating, the way you're sleeping, the way you're drinking, the way you're learning, the way you're training your mind, and how you're positioning your place, all of these things are doing to your mind really what you kind of are, what everybody does to their body in different varying times, right? You're training it, you're adapting it, you're evolving it, you're helping it goes to a better place. And you need all of this so you can get to clear decision making. And clear decision making is more required for early stage startup than it is for anything else. Like, for real. A lot of folks believe that it's like the big decisions that you're making that dictate the future of your company. Totally untrue. It's the small decisions that you're making every single day, but you're literally making tens of thousands of decisions every single day. You can only do that if you have a clear mind. You have to have a clear mind or you can't make these decisions. And the way to make sure that you're making clear decision making as well as making sure that your mindset is in place is you want to make sure that you're covering things like the enemies of clear decision making are eliminated. Now, I think I've mentioned these once or twice before, but I always want to reinforce them. Your ego is an enemy to clear decision making. The social environment that you're in is an enemy to clear decision making. Your emotions are enemies to clear decision making. Inertia is an enemy to clear decision making. And all of these things, they are unconscious biases that just sit in here and they force us to make dumb, stupid decisions. So, like, example, case in point. Did you hear the way that person spoke to me? How dare they speak to me like that? Do they not know who I am? But maybe what they said is actually more important than the negative attribute of how they spoke to you. Maybe you need to look at it in a different way. The other things you got to do for clear decision making is you have to be very self-aware. You got to be self-knowledgeable. Like, what are the things that Brian needs to set up guardrails for to make sure that I allow for the fact that maybe I stay in bed late in the morning. Maybe I hate doing things which are highly analytical. Maybe I hate engaging in conflict. Like, what are those things that I know about me that I have to make special compensation for to make sure that I break through in them? And once you've got your self-knowledge, then you can move to self-confidence, you can move to self-accountability, and for the same reason that hardly anybody continues when they start out at the beginning of the year and they're working on, oh, I'm going to get fit and I'm going to lose weight, and then they never do it. You need to get your self-control. And your self-control ties directly into the stuff that you got to have done. Final piece for me on clear decision making is just exemplars, mentors, people around you. You should be continually building this bigger and stronger and better so that you continually look and you're like, oh my God, look at this person I have here. And your group, which started at the very beginning down here, goes up and up and up and up and up. Okay. Final piece is communication. I want to cover the communication pieces while I'm speaking with Arnav, okay? I'm going to bring him in. I've got like one of our fastest growing companies are going to come in here. This entire talk is going to be about how he is achieving what he's achieved. The man has got peak performance drilled into his brain, and the way he's built out his company entirely reflects that. And today you're in for a treat because we're going to look at some of the things that he has done to be able to take him to the place that he's actually arrived to. So I am going to bring in Arnav from ZenTrades. And there he is.
Hey. Hi, Brian.
Good man.
How are you doing? How's everyone else doing?
I'm pretty damn good. Now, Arnav is calling in from India, and so hopefully a little bit of a blurry reception, but I think we hear you fine.
Yeah. I'm in New York, by the way, Brian, right now.
Oh, you're in New York. Excellent.
Perfect.
I
Stay
love it.
tuned.
There's a nice swimming pool behind you. And so I want to here's what we're going to go through here. I really want to get your perspective on peak performance mindset as well, just before we kick off, because I think it's such an important part of it. And especially like when you're not 21 years old. When you're 21, I'm sorry, like maybe things are a little bit hard, but they ain't nearly as hard as when you have a partner and child. Things get way you up the stakes like way more. But I want to talk a little bit about, tell us about ZenTrades. Tell us about what you're building, how you've built it. Give us a little bit of an overview, and then we're going to dig into specific growth hacks that you've done to be able to take the business to where it is today.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone at Expert Dojo. Quick background, like what ZenTrades is: an AI-enabled co-pilot for field technicians, for people who are out there who repairs your stuff. Let's say like your HVAC, plumbing, electrical. Like we started out by this very defined segment of the market that is compliance owned market. Um, that includes fire, electrical, kitchen repair, pest control. So we are the system of records. And top of that, we have a co-pilot that does 90% of the documentation and enables our customers to make more money while stay more compliant.
Beautiful. And you started this when?
We started in December 2022. Yeah, like no, towards the end of 2022.
Wonderful. And we know that this is an incredible industry that everybody needs, but we also know that to acquire users, you need to have special superhero skill sets. So we're going to talk about those. But before we do, and we are a proud investor in ZenTrades, so everybody knows. And so before we kick into that, though, you heard my little piece at the beginning about mental health, peak performance, mindset, all those things. What are your thoughts?
No, absolutely, Brian. You're on spot. And I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. Like, no, I've seen that when I've taken care of myself the best. Like, no, a lot of down trickles down. Number one, it gives you clarity, right? Like, no, you spoke about you went running. Like, no, you go running. Like, no, for me, running was that clarity of thought. Like, no, I would go on. Like in my previous world before I started, I used to be a long distance runner, marathon, half marathon, but now I don't get time. But like, still just like giving that clarity of thought, introspective. The other part of it, like as well, what I've realized, like whiteboarding and journaling also helps, and the reason is like as founders, we are dealing with tens of thousands of decision making of all the time, and some of the times like you just have to get organized, and anything that is able to take you out of the rut of just firefighting and gives you that, hey, like no, these are my top one, two, three, and that's what I'm going to prioritize on. That gives on a lot of things. But like you're spot on. Like no, I yeah, just like no, I've not been doing a good job on that myself. Like no, like no, taking out time for ourselves and taking out time for myself. But I wish like no that I'm mindful about it and carve out time for like know how I like know that I take out time for exercising, I take out time for eating well, I take out time for sleeping well, and all of that stuff. As you alluded to, like no small micro decisions what we take today like decides upon such a big outcome for our future, right? No, I can go like I was just thinking about it like no few hours back during a shower, like where there's this company that they just identified a small wedge, and that small wedge is giving them like 10x 20x growth around that. So being at the peak performance of our mind is probably like one of the most important aspect, because of like that micro decisions are going to decide upon like how much of a scale of a company can be built.
I'm going to keep digging into this. I think it's a huge thing. Back in the day when, I'm old enough to have been around in the early days of Tony Robbins. I actually watched The Godfather yesterday, and I was like, oh man, I remember I watched this not long after it came out. Crikey, I've been around for a while. Like Al Pacino was a child. He was a child in The Godfather. He was just, and back in those days, I used to look at the Tony Robbins stuff and think, I don't know, like imagining a castle in the future is not necessarily going to give me a castle. And I stay in that mindset, but I also believe that when you actually have it tethered to very specific plans about how to get there, you've now got gold. Now you beat everybody. You're unbeatable. You're like the warrior that 1,000 people try and take down, and you're still standing at the end of it because you're someone who believes, someone with purpose, somebody who is willing to do anything it takes to stay in the arena. And so I agree with you. And also the point that you say about these micro decisions happening all day, every day is really good, is really important as well, because all it takes for companies to fail is repetitively make not good. I'm not even going to say bad, but
Yeah.
repetitively make not good micro decisions. That's all it takes for a company to fail. And to your point, that one moment where there is clear decision making and you move out of firefighting and you actually make that decision yourself, that changes absolutely everything. Case in point, two cases in point. One, the fact that we're talking about this today will probably finish this stream and you'll be like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to, like you layer on 2 or 3 or 4 things that you wouldn't have necessarily done if we hadn't have done this. So sometimes we just need to be reminded, because there's a lot of things coming at us every single day, but being reminded is a great thing. Being reminded that we are Michael Spinks. We are like, Mr. Bolt, who's like the fastest runner in the world. We are like we are Djokovic. Like we are these great athletes because we're looking to build unicorns. And the amount of unicorns that there are in the world is exactly the same as there are top 50 athletes on the planet within their respective field. Why would we arrogantly think that our training should be any different than theirs? They work on their mind, they work on their body, they work on their resistance, they work on their mindset. Like we ain't going to get a unicorn for free. And so I really appreciate you digging in there and saying it, because I think it's a huge thing for everybody coming through. And actually yesterday I didn't work in the afternoon, which I know it was a Sunday, but still I didn't work in the afternoon. And that's highly unusual. I spent family time and I watched The Godfather and it was friggin' awesome. And now I feel great. Like I got up this morning, 4:30. I'm like, come on, world, give me whatever you got. I'm ready. My emails are cleared. My texts are pretty much lined up. I'm doing a great live stream with you. Life is good. So it's all about preparation. So let's
Just
go
one
back to
question,
Zen.
Brian. Just one
Okay.
question, and because a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with this as well. Would love to. When you are watching that movie or when you're playing with your kid, like, no, did you at all feel guilty doing that time, or was it like very clear that look, like, no, this is me time and this is important for me? How did you come to that, and how did you execute that part of it?
So this is such an interesting point, because I have this conversation actually with my kid all the time. I
Mhm.
say, if you can get out of the way the things that need to be done. I'm obsessive. I know I'm obsessed. I have major obsession problems. I know this. I'm kind of happy with it, but it can't be great for other people. But for me, it works really well, right? And so what I do is this. Every single thing. If you said to me, hey, Brian, can you introduce me to such and such? I would make a note on a Word document straight away. And depending on where I was today with things to do, I might make it for Wednesday or Thursday this week, but it's on a Word doc. Like a Word doc works for me. And I might, between the beginning of the week and the end of the week, I might have 200 to 220 individual to-do items on that Word document. But today, for example, I only have 3 things on my Word document to do, because on the weekend, I got them all cleared. And then I knew I wanted to take it easy on the Sunday afternoon. So on Friday evening, I cleared my emails down to 2 emails. On Saturday, I left the house. And like my wife is saying, you don't have to leave. You can be dancing. I'm like, I gotta leave. And so I left the house. They didn't see me until 6 o'clock in the evening. And actually, they didn't even really see me at 6 in the evening because they'd gone out by the time I got home. But I knew that the things that needed to be done that were written down in my list of death, like I cannot reach Monday morning without these being entirely cleared. I knew that needs to be sorted. And so that was all sorted. I got into Sunday. I knew the only thing that I had to work on was one activity. I got that one activity done, and I could have got ahead for Monday and Tuesday, but I chose not to because, in all honesty, I had done enough. So the things only weigh on my mind if I'm behind. Like I could have gone out. I had somebody wanted to go out with me on Friday night. I didn't go out on Friday night because I knew that it would ruin my Sunday afternoon. So
Gotcha.
everything is about planning. Everything is about obsessive planning. Everything is about lists. For me, it starts with like the plan, the strategic, the vision, and then it goes to the strategic objective. Then it goes to the actual activities that need to be done. Then it goes to the timeline that's associated with those activities. So what I mean by that is, if I say we need to invest in 100 companies, well, if we need to invest in, say 50 companies, we need to invest in 50 companies. Well, I know that we need to have a certain amount of investment for that, which means there has to be a certain amount of outreach to LPs. But I also know that we need to have a program that can support the companies that we have internally, which means that we have to have a certain amount of videos and things that need to be done. But I also need that we know we need to have a team. So I will list out what are the activities and requirements to make sure that that's successful. Then I will break that down into, and that will tie into the vision, of course. Then I will break it down into hourly, daily, weekly, monthly. I literally have activities for November, which are in there for November. I have them in for September, that later on today, I'll go into September, I'll clear them out and I'll allocate it day by day over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then that takes me to a place of, I know the activities required to achieve the targets that I had set, to manage to reach the vision that had been set out in the beginning, will all get done. And that allows me to do the thing that you just mentioned there, which is clarity of thought, that I'm not stressed, I'm not worried, I'm not like anxious about having to do things, and I can think in my absolute best mind.
Awesome. So planning, and planning, and then
Every
and stick to that plan that just like gives you clarity. Awesome, Brian.
And most people don't, by the way, which is why it's such an amazing question, because the challenge that we all have, I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur, we do different things, but we have the same objective, right? To grow a company, to be successful, and to make sure that our customers, that happen to be people that we invest in, and LPs, but our customers are so delighted that they'll never, ever, ever want to be with anybody else. Like that's our jobs, right? That we want to do at the end. The problem is that as an entrepreneur, there are so many things coming at us every single day. There's, what are we outreaching? Are we managing our people? Is somebody trying to steal from us? Do we have like an upset customer who's like hating us right now? Do we have partnerships that are falling apart? Did our process not work the way it was supposed to work? Did our product not work the way it was supposed to work? Are we evolving to the next level? Are we creating exponential growth based on what, like, all of these things are headlines. And the problem with the headlines is the headlines have got 30 or 40 subtopics. So growth is not growth. Growth is like social media, paid media, email media, everything else that goes with that. So the summary of this is, we have so many things coming at us every single minute that if we do not try and take control, that's why I started out by saying, take control of your mind. Because if you can take control of your mind, you have a chance of being able to take control of the circumstances that are going to slam you all day, every day. Because the objective, at least for me, is to get to a place during the day as quickly as possible where I don't have to firefight, and I have the ability to be able to use clarity of thought to make decisions that will outplay the decisions that are being made by my competitors in that moment.
Awesome.
That's the game. Thank you, buddy. Thank you for going down that rabbit hole, because for everybody listening to this, this is the only stuff that matters. So talk to me about some of the things that you've done in ZenTrades, because to go from, you are in the business of trust, really. And you're in the business of people making sure, because they're trusting you with the things that need to be fixed in their homes and in their offices. Talk to me first of all about like how you built trust. And then I want to dig into some of the other hacks that you've done that have helped make you become successful. And the people listening to this are entrepreneurs that are looking to emulate your incredible growth, but also investors who are looking at the companies that are growing at 100, 200, 300%. And they love hearing the stories about how you are doing it right now.
Awesome, awesome. So I'll break it down. Like, now, your question, if I try to break it down, is, growth is sub-targeted, and one of the core reason is trust. And I will bring it back to, like, what we do and how the market is a little distinct, right? So many of you guys, many of us might have heard about this company called Service Titan, which has done incredibly well, really, really good. And so if I educate, I'll just take a little moment to educate about the market, because it's going to be hard without to understand that. So our market are basically subdivided into two categories, and then multiple categories. One category is residential, the other category is commercial. And even for people who don't know, tradesmen are the people who shows up to any residential or commercial property. They need to have certain amount of skills, certification, and training, and they can go and fix your air conditioning. They can go and fix plumbing. They can go and fix fire inspection, pest control, and so many 40, 50 other verticals where there is a specialized work and training that is required. And probably, like, 5 million to 20, sometimes 100 million. These are businesses that has traditionally been running on pen and paper, and they are our customers, right? Like, no, so this is our ICP, was very distinct, defined, not just in terms of vertical, but in terms of size of customers as well, and then again in where we find them, and henceforth. So coming back, right? Like, no, customers subdivided into residential, commercial. Like, no, we did not go after customers that has been served by many other companies. We figured out a very niche segment out of it, that is compliance regulated industries. And compliance regulated industries are subdivided into three, four, five categories. Number one is fire vertical. We call it fire protection. Then is electrical, kitchen repair, and then of course pest control, and some of these. And eventually, like, our big, hairy, audacious goal is something like, that we want to be Service Titan for commercial. But again, coming back to the trust part of it, what we figured out is, like, for your customers to win, we were selling this very horizontal CRM ERP record company or product. And I think so, like, Brian, you educated us about that concept of Trojan horse, right? Like, no, so can we provide just a little taste of value of the product, and get them to get a high value proposition of the product, and then really, like, when they feel trusted, that look, like, no, I generated more revenue with them, or I saved cost, or I was able to do my inspection better, I got this, then it really reeled them in. And then now we can use the end-to-end scheduling, routing, ticketing, invoicing, everything around it. So very precise answer to your question about building the trust is finding out what their deepest pain point is, or deepest desire of the business is. Like, in our case, it is revenue generating, and as well as meeting compliance. And if you can solve that with a small wedge of the product, that builds the trust, and then bring them back in. And then there are, like, few other things what we did, but I'm going to pause out here.
I love it. I also love the fact that you mentioned Trojan horse. People, we, we have to be smart
Yeah,
when launching a new company to people who don't know us, and we
yeah,
have to make it easy. And so this is why it's so hard for new car brands to launch with like a huge, big, beautiful car, which is like $30,000, because it's such a big decision for people to make that is very hard for them to actually do a leap in that trust. And so by using a Trojan horse, by making the decision so easy, so simple, then you have this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful roadmap to being able to actually make the customer the ones who build the trust for you, because they come in and they love it. What did that look like when you were building that Trojan horse?
yeah. So a couple of things, right? Like, no, so number one, that Trojan horse has to be, like, no, let me tell you the framework, like no how that we decided upon the Trojan horse, right? Like no, the framework for it is like no is what is what is the highest value to the customer, and the highest value for the smallest change management element. Like when we're talking about B2B SaaS or even consumer, it's said that for every delta X of change management, you need to create 10 delta X of impact for your
That's good.
product to be sucked out of your hand, right? Like no, now for us, like no, then we use the framework, like no, look, what is the Trojan horse can we use? And the framework is, and this is extremely in order priority. Number one, every business cares about, is there a way that you can increase my top line growth, right? Like no, so making them more money was the top of our framework. The second was, is there a way that we can make their revenue optimized? And the revenue optimization is something like no, look, most of the customers has a net 30 or net 60 or net 90. Can we solve their cash flow problem with like no, let's say like no lending or something like that? That can be a second Trojan horse. The third is compliance. The compliance is like no, hey, like no, because this is so core need of it. The fourth would be time saving or customer really liking them and stuff like that. But we kept on really like trying to think about, is there a Trojan horse that we can think about that can get them more money, can make them more money? And we settled upon like no, one of the core pain point that they are able to only create three out of three estimates out of the 10 visits what they make. If they were able to generate six estimates out of the 10 visits they make, they would double their revenue. So then we further like no, brought us ourselves back is like no, is there a Trojan horse that we can give that is like no very easy estimating tool into our product? So that was the broader thought process. I'm just going to say one more thing and then I'll pass it on to you. Is also right now we are also experimenting one more thing, such as many of these companies, they don't have a website. So these are companies that has operated without websites. So the Trojan horse as well is like, no, can you just like, no, it's going to be very cheap for you to create a website for them. And can you deliver something value prior? And then they start trusting you. So we are constantly thinking about like, what are the Trojan horses into our product that we can give them to get value before they trust us.
I love this. So now we've gone from one hack to three hacks, right? We start with Trojan horse, which is incredibly important. Everybody listening, there's a Trojan horse for everything we can do. Like for example, if I was at Expert Dojo, maybe we would give out a free training course, right? A free training program. We would say only the greatest, most elite entrepreneurs in the whole world get this program, but we would like to give you this program, which is something for yourselves, because we believe that all entrepreneurs believe at least a little bit of access to what the greatest and most deserving already receive, right? And so anybody out there, as you're listening, you're thinking of your product, sometimes it's something free, sometimes it's something you charge a little for, right? Sometimes that what the exchange is value, that they have to do something to receive something. But in all times, it is never the actual full product that you're giving out. It's always something that actually gets them to trust you a little bit more. The second thing that you mentioned that I really like there is like approaching is that we don't know, because we're building the products. Again, all of us, we don't know what the end solution looks like. Airbnb today doesn't look anything like Airbnb looked like at the beginning. They would never have imagined that they would have experiences as a core center of what they would do. They would never imagine that like the range of offerings they have. But at the beginning, their job was just to listen to their customer. That's their job. Here's a couple of places to stay. Now tell us things. And then what we're going to do is we promise you we're going to listen to you, because it's Horizon 1. And Horizon 1 is about listening, 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 and more listening. And so the only way that you can start on that journey is by having different messages to test what the customer is actually thinking, because they don't actually know, like, on the top of the mind. If you say, tell me the very best thing that we can say to you about ZenTrades, they're gonna be like, well, oh, I think it could be compliance, right? But they don't really know, right? And so you need to be able to give them different messaging and give them different ways of seeing it, so you can see which ones emotionally they get drawn to. And so I love that. My personal, I'm really interested to see, I think compliance is going to be like the one at the back of the field that catches up and catches up and catches up and catches up, because the more technology there is out there, the more logistical things we have to do, the more complicated life becomes for all of us, the more we know that we're messing up somewhere on the compliance. Somebody said to me something the other day about, like, totally unrelated to what you're doing, but the same principle. It's like, if you don't, like, register on this site regarding this taxes, you could get fined $5,000. I'm saying, no, like, who knows this? Like, who's watching this in the early stage space? Nobody. So all of these additional compliance things are happening to make it harder for companies. So by you coming in, multiple different messages, multiple different methodologies have been way to put it forward, I think that's hugely powerful. And then the final piece that you put in, which I really like, which is loading on value, 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 and more value. What are the things that the customer needs? How can I provide it to them? How can I make sure that this love affair that I'm having with the customer becomes even more love coming back from their side? Three huge pieces there. As you are engaging on those three areas, what are some of the tactics that you're using to deploy? Like, are you using different landing pages for the different messaging or different email sequences? And if you are not, then what's the plans for the future? And if you are, what's your methodology for how to deploy that?
Yeah. So bunch of things, right? For us, for every messaging, what we use is different landing pages, and such as um, um, when we used our co-pilot element, the structure. And again, I want to be very, without talking about, like, scale is the next element, but before scale is, you are testing it out with 25 customers. So and for us, we define it very, very narrow for a certain set of target customers, and we carried out not at scale but at smaller scale. No, this product is in your hands, how do you do it, and how do you react? And through that, number one, what we found out that, that this messaging is working. And then when we use that, and then we really, blast it out to a lot more individual, and just with the click rate, we do have certain amount of calls and everything as well, that what would we do. But that's one aspect around it. We went to trade shows as well, right? So during that trade show, it just created a lot of buzz. It created a lot of word of mouth. Now what we are doing as well is that website, and as well as the Trojan horse, we are doing it in a very quick sequence of having that. So now that we have identified the messaging is, using the landing page, and then from that sequencing to using that, hey, this is your website, and then eventually, no, by the way, no, this is the way how other customers have generated revenue, and henceforth around it. So for us, the tactics has been mostly emails, and even interference, or I'd say, synchronous communication of calling them and telling them that, no, hey, such and such customers are making more money, and you have an opportunity to make more money around there. So
I like that.
yeah, yeah,
I like
very
that.
traditional, but it's just bunch of experimentation. Eventually now it's emailing plus phone call that's working for us.
So it's really huge that you say this, because it was, for a while there, back in the day, everything was phone, and then everything moved to email. Now what's
Yeah.
happening is people are receiving so many emails that actually it's very, very hard to get anybody to respond to a cold email at all. But actually they're receiving hardly any phone calls.
Yeah.
And the phone calls that they are receiving, they're receiving them from outsourced places where a lot of the time, they don't really consider those to be worthy phone calls. But if you're actually a founder, or you and your team are picking up the phone and calling prospects, and you're doing it alongside an email that's going through. And maybe if you want to go crazy and there's a nice little email sequence in there, even better. And if you want to go like crazy multiplied by 2 and you're loading on your social media, so you're doing direct tweets, or maybe you're just like looping people into social posts that you're doing, now you are playing the game properly. And what you're hearing, what ZenTrades are doing, is that they recognize that people don't buy on 1 or 2 or 3 interactions anymore. Those days are gone. People buy somewhere between 7 and 20 interactions. And so you have to have the sequences, you have to have landing pages, you have to have offers, you have to have clickbait. Like what Arnav is talking about, there's clickbait, which is I'm going to offer something and I'm going to ask for you for something. If I put an advert up here, which is paid advertising, which ties into a landing page, which ties into free additional value, then it's going to say, click here to get a free something. And that free something is what he needs to be able to make sure that he gets your email. And then once he has your email, now you're on his database. Now you're going to get the emails on a regular basis until you are ready to buy. And there becomes the entire cycle. And by looping phone calls in there in the middle, you also have a much better chance to be able to do it. I love that. Talk to me about, and also love the fact that you mentioned trade shows as well. Do you have a omni-channel plan for trade shows? So when you go there, do you get a booth? If you do get a booth, what are some of the tactics you use to be able to get really good feedback on it? And then how do you then tie that into online follow-up when you get back in the office?
Yeah. So a bunch of things, right? Like, no, so for us, we are extremely small. We do not have team and stuff like that. So just pulling up that trade show itself was a big challenge, right? Like, no, but like, no, we did certain tactics. Like, no, number one, and I'm saying in a recorded line, but we were not able to afford interns and pay them, but we paid them with experience. So we had like no 3 unpaid interns that accompanied us to the booth,
Amazing.
right? Like no, and then like no, we had this booth, but like no, some other people did not show up, and they said like no, okay, like no, you can use the whole space, and this booth turned out to be really good for us. Like no, it it did get to a lot of people like no when we went, and they're not used to seeing this younger set of people, like no, because what we are talking about is a little bit traditional industry, such as like I'm just gonna give you a glimpse of it, right? Like no, can you see my screen?
Oh no, I don't think we'll be able to share, but just on here, unless Shashank pulls it up, maybe you can put it in chat to Shashank. So shared on screen, showing the stream. Let's see if that brings it up. There we go. You're up.
Yeah. So if you look, right, like no, this was in Orlando, and like no, we got this, and this is like no, very frugal that we put it up. It looks very fancy. Like no, we put together the poster. Like no, we created certain amount of music and videos of the product that we were still working, right? Like no, and we pulled off this small thing that like no, we we kind of got t-shirts shipped from India, right? Like there's a bunch of t-shirts, and we like you know, anyone who comes here takes a picture with us, and like no, we are gonna give you a t-shirt or something like that, right? Like no, and you won't believe like no, so a bunch of things like no, this trade show really opened up. Number one, it did open up that we got to realize. So we were selling at this much smaller accounts. Like 5K was our average ACV in the past. Like when we were doing all this phone call and stuff. So we certainly realized that our product was almost ready to serve 100K, a 200K sized accounts, right? Like because they came up for their Trojan horse product. They really liked our Trojan horse product. But when they came and we demoed them the whole product, like it was like 3 4 5 demos, and like they were like oh man, this make that gave us the confidence that look, our product is almost there. Number two, there is a whole lot of like P acquisition that is going on in our space. So there is certainly like lot larger set of companies that is going on, right? Like so then it and we are almost at the tail end of signing the contract with this larger companies. Then we contacted someone else. They helped us work onto a small dinner for all of the people. So it just certainly became a buzz and the word. Look what these guys are doing is very, very cool, and henceforth around it. So coming back, right, to a precise question about tactics that we use, right? Number one was just showing up, right? Look, we always try to think about hey, what did you think different? But just following that basic things of just showing up, being out there, showing up on time, doing all of that, being courteous. That itself is underrated. So number one, that we just did that. Number two, some smart of things where we were able to play certain parts of our video and stuff of our product that was that really, really helped. And the third part was as well small tactics, just going and talking at other places and booths like that. In fact, again, I'm saying it on a recorded line, but we from the conference, we had an acquisition offer that came to us, saying that hey, we really like you guys, we are interested in acquiring you. So coming back, right, wrapping it up, it's about small things. Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. So I want to I want to underline something that you just said there, and then I want to, in the last 5 minutes or so, I want to focus on ZenTrades and what ZenTrades are going to do going forward to build out the unicorn that you are going to build, right? And I truly believe that as an investor in your company. But if you look at really what Arnav has just gone through there, and it was really interesting because I had Sam on from Axel AI last week, and Sam talked about how he used to go to trade shows and he used to go to conferences, and he would bring his banner with him, and if he saw an empty space, he would put his banner up, he would put a tablecloth on the table, he would put his flyers out, and then he would stand behind it and he would say, as if he was there all the time. And once or twice, people came over to him and they're like, no, dude, you can't do that. That's not cool. But then they laughed because, God bless him, he actually did them a favor, because the thing would have been empty if he hadn't been there. And you have to respect it. In early stage startup, it is not about raising money. That is never the problem. It is always the symptom. If you are raising money, if you are growing your user base, if you are hustling to get out to them on multiple areas, you will always win, and you're always going to get to the next level. So I think that I just want to underline your hustle on this. And it sounds like, listening to you as a CEO running your company, I think for a lot of folks, they're going to be thinking, okay, great, he's got it under control, but kicking underwater for this duck to look as beautiful as it does on the top of the lake as you're gracing across it and back. And that hustle, what you mentioned with the conferences, what you mentioned with your landing pages, what you mentioned with your additional value, what you mentioned with the Trojan horse, all of that hustle comes across in spades. So that is what it takes to have both the mindset and not just the will, but also the execution power to be able to build out a unicorn. And that, my friend, is why we invested in you. Now, I would like to see, going forward, talk to us for the next couple of minutes about ZenTrades. What's going to happen towards the end of this year? And where will we end up between 100 or 200% growth? Next year, how do you see that growing? And talk to us about money that you're raising and what you believe is going to happen, considering that at this moment, you are only speaking to the investors on the stream.
Yeah, perfect, right? So number one, right? While going to the trade shows and this, we figured out, that we have a product that is being pulled by the market. We have certainly an identified set of customers that is really, really at the core of that are going through a change as well. So we have hit this spot in a certain phase that's happened as part of our service titan growth as well, that in 2017, 16, 18, there's a lot of HVAC plumbing companies that were being acquired by PE firms. And today, they own almost 97% of that PE acquired company. That same phenomena is working in our market, that we have this larger companies that are going through PE consolidation, and we are the cutting edge product in the market for this. So what we plan on is keep on going and hammering and trying to acquire this larger company. So yes, we have figured out a process to acquire the SMB of the 5K deals, but we are transitioning as well because our product works there. So really getting out there, one customers, like, we're signing this contract this week, and then a bunch of this like that we have lined up. So we see a clear path to almost a 3 million in revenue by the end of next year. That like what we need to execute, just a little bit of help on the product, and but more than the product is just like GTM being out there and acquiring all of these customers at the core of it. And we are looking to build a next generational company, like the best trades companies in this space, and we're looking for the right partners more than their money to come join us in this journey, so that like we can build the next generational company in this space.
Wonderful. And that 3 million in revenue will be a percentage increase of how much from this year?
That would be like 5x growth, that what we are on. And even this year, like we have even though our denominator was a little smaller, but we have seen already almost 6x growth so far, just following some of these tactics.
Yeah. So you're an animal, you're a beast. I love it. And this is this is all investors want to see. They want to have as much certainty as possible that the companies are moving in the right direction and executing in a way that customers are demonstrating that they like what we do. They like what you do. That's all it is. And so you're doing that in an incredible way. Are you raising money now? And then obviously we're going to go for Series A Q3, Q4 next year.
Yes, so we're raising our seed round right now, and then we have that high growth opportunity, and then I think so we'll also have, we might not need to, but technically we'd want to grow faster, where we have achieved a certain critical mass, and we would plan on to going into other verticals of compliance, and then eventually become the service titan for commercial industries.
I love it. And how much are you looking to raise on the seed?
We are looking to raise 3 million. We're looking to raise 3 million. And the journey is 3 million to get to 3 to 5 million in revenue.
I love it. Okay, beautiful. Look, it's not happening through outreach, building great, and being really smart in how you get your message across, and then doing it over and over and over and over and over again. So congrats on all that you do. Entrepreneurs, learn. Investors, if you want to reach out, just reach out to me, Brian at expertdojo.com. I will loop him and the team in with decks and everything else so that you can see it. But in the meantime, let's just go out there and build a unicorn, my friend.
Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate all your help through this entire journey, Brian, and the entire Expo Dojo team.
You got it. We've only just started.